Welcome to the 1905 podcast with your hosts Joe Kevin and Chris Sheen. Joe and I have been going to Stamford Bridge for over 30 years. This podcast takes you inside our unfiltered voice notes on all things Chelsea, sharing our view from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. In this episode, we ask the question, are Chelsea a team to be feared again? The win at West Ham means that Chelsea have lost only 2 games from 20 in the league since February, with the midweek win against Barrow making it 3 clean sheets in a row for good measure. We look back at both games, look ahead to the visit of Brighton this weekend, and discuss the dilemma at centre-back facing Enzo Maresca in the coming weeks. Let's start with our live reactions to last weekend's win at the London Stadium.
Palmer's gone running in and Cole Palmer's in and Palmer has rattled in the third. Well, whatever was said at half-time by Lopetegui, 71 seconds later, Chelsea have made it 3-0 through Cole Palmer.
The game has just finished. West Ham 0, Chelsea 3. Absolutely delighted. So happy with that. The contrast between Bournemouth away and West Ham away, like chalk and cheese. I think at times we have played better. But having said that, our ability to soak up pressure and hit teams on the break is going to be devastating this year. If I'm being really picky, I thought that Chelsea actually wasted quite a lot of chances, which is, you know, something we have done in the past. When you've scored 3 goals away from home, that does feel a bit of a silly thing to say. But jokes aside, we could have had 5 or 6 today easily. But generally, in all seriousness, I'm not going to come on here and start talking about Chelsea's missed chances. They were fabulous today. I said last week the back four was poor, and I meant every word. That there was Levi Colwill, probably the standout guy. Today, you could pretty much say they all had a good game. Maybe Fofana was the weakest link at fullback, but again, it's not his natural position. I thought even Disasi, when he came on for half an hour, he really did make amends, should we say, for his poor performance last week. He looked really comfortable, actually, Disasi, and I think that's, if we're going to use him, I think that's the best way to use him. It's if you're up in games and you've got injuries to players like Gusto and James, to bring him on and mix him with Fofana in as like a double act to basically fill a hole, essentially, then that's the best way to use him. But yeah, I think Cucurella was excellent. He was, again, a thorn in the side. I loved his foul. Silly as it sounds, I loved his foul late on in the second half. That's the sort of thing that Arsenal teams and Man City teams have been doing for the last couple of seasons. Break on the halfway line. I know I shouldn't be condoning free kicks, but you get my point, is that he's broke the play up and it gives us a chance to get back. Them too many times in the last few years, we'd have let that play out. The nice Chelsea coming out and giving every team a chance to break on us. So, love that. I thought Cucurella's performance just generally was very good. And I've got to say, Levi Colwill and Tosin were outstanding. Tosin growing on me a lot. I'm really impressed with him today. And Levi Colwill just oozes class. The guy is fantastic. Really can't speak of highly enough of him. He's just been superb so far. If you go into midfield, I think Caicedo and Enzo, without any shadow of any doubt, that's their best game as a partnership. I thought Caicedo was excellent from start to finish. Fantastic assist for Jackson's second goal. And I just thought that he was great, breaking the play up, being a pain in the arse to the West Ham players. He doesn't let anything get past him. And I thought Enzo was clearly his best game. He didn't give the ball away. He was very efficient with his passing. He was proactive with his passing too. He wasn't passing backwards. He was passing forward, looking for the forward runs. And I was just really happy with how that partnership worked. I was really happy with how the centre-backs partnership worked. And obviously, if you want to go, I know Cole Palmer's not playing as a striker essentially, but I thought him and Jackson really linked up brilliantly through the centre. They've got a real connection going. I think that's why maybe Maresca's not keen to put Nkunku in from the start. Jackson frustrates us at times, but he has these games where you just think, 2 goals and another assist today. You know, you can't ask for much more than that of the guy. And he didn't really have many more chances today, really, that fell to him that I can remember. He was really efficient in front of goal. I think not only did okay, I think he's the one that was maybe, you can't play well every week. Let's be fair, you can't play well every week. But I thought he was possibly our weakest player in the forward line today. I thought Felix looked really good when he came on. Again, he should have scored, but I think that goal will come. And Nkunku, again, great link-up play when it didn't have long, 15, 20 minutes. But that's the nice thing, to bring Jackson and Palmer off for Felix and Nkunku. That's such strength in depth. And Neto obviously coming on to cause havoc with his pace, I thought was excellent too. I like Neto today. Again, I've been a little bit critical of him. I think he had a good few minutes against Wolves, but not seen much more than that this year. He hasn't really done loads. But like I said in the previous podcast, he hasn't had a lot of training with the team. He's only had a few games, a few weeks. So he hasn't had all pre-season like some of the other players have had. So maybe he's, again, like I say, learning the playbook. I thought Sancho he got a little bit of criticism on the TV, but I thought Sancho was actually all right. Not as good as the Bournemouth game last week, I wouldn't have said, but I don't think that means he had a poor game by any stretch. One or two things were a little bit sloppy now and again, but he always looks dangerous. And I think we need to give him a lot more time because, again, he's another one, hasn't had long in this Chelsea system. He knows Maresca from his, obviously, Man City days, but he's not a player that obviously has come in very long with the guys, so he doesn't know exactly how they all play. You can see Palmer and Jackson had that little bit of connection. So these things will come. But yeah, a little bit disappointing from Noni. I thought he could have done a lot better for that shot that he had when he had two players to choose from in the box, but he decided to shoot. Those are the things that Sterling did last year, and it didn't go down very well. You can't get greedy. Doesn't matter what happens. Whether you score or assist, it all means the same. And I think Chelsea fans couldn't care less. If Disasi was the top goal scorer this year, we couldn't care less. Do you know what I mean? It's not about you, it's about the team. And I think that's just the one thing with youngsters is they can get quite greedy sometimes. So not criticising him too much, I'm really not, because I think he's going to have his good days. But I thought today wasn't his best. And you've all got me to thank, actually, because I put Sanchez in before the Bournemouth game in my fantasy football team. And that's 2 clean sheets back to back now. So clearly what I did was a tactical masterstroke. So, yeah, I thought he was good today, Sanchez. Second good game in a row. I'm just going to point out one or two things, and these are one or two things. There was a sloppy pass in the first half, which he got away with, and he did a mad sort of thing where he came out where Somerville kind of got round the back of him and he crossed it, and it was a bit of a weird thing in the first half, but he came for all his crosses. He punched one, he caught two. He made a good save from Bowen at the near post in the second half. He didn't have as many shots to save today, but his passing is much better. He's very good at letting the opposition, he slows it all down, picks it up, and then he goes with the ball to usually someone like Caicedo or Enzo through the midfield. He's very good at getting it out quickly, and his kicking is actually very good too, as in like his long balls over the top. He's very accurate with those. So, look, you can't criticise a 3-0 win away from home in a London derby at a ground that has always been a little bit... We've had some wins there, let's be fair. It's not been all doom and gloom at West Ham, but they are a tricky team to play against, and it doesn't matter if they're bottom of the league or top of the league, West Ham, they're always going to make it tricky for Chelsea. That is a fantastic win. I've got nothing more to say apart from really pleased. We're second in the table. Who'd have thought that a few weeks ago? Yeah, I know there's a few teams to play today, but that cannot be a bad thing, and I'm over the moon with the performance. Well done, boys.
Yeah, cracking note, Joe, and I think it's a really good summary of the game. The first thing that comes to mind is the immediate feeling I have at the end of the game is this is the most positive I can remember feeling about Chelsea for a long time. And I'm trying to think how long it is. It's certainly the most positive under the new owners. You're probably going back to that Tuchel, aren't you, to actually have that feel that you believe in the team. Obviously, it helps. We'll going second for at least for a short period of time is going to make you feel like that. But 3 away wins in a row, and actually now you look at it, it's a good start to the season. That's what we were saying, weren't we, before the game? It's you'll get a feel after this game of what the season's really looking like. And I thought we were brilliant. I thought we were absolutely brilliant. We talked before the game about the importance of a good start, and it couldn't have been better, could it? Jackson was absolutely brilliant. And yeah, I'm just feeling great. Just watched the players all go over to the away fans. You could see this is something, again, that we talked about in pre-season, that we'd heard about Maresca, making all the players. You saw him literally pointing, getting them all to go over and stand in front of the away fans. And that's so important, isn't it? It's something we've been crying out for, to have more of a connection between the fans and the players and this young squad. And that was brilliant to see. It was great. I was really just enjoying watching that, to be fair. And yeah, you said it as well before this game. If we can try and get the home crowd, the away fans are brilliant throughout the game, as they always are. If we can get Stamford Bridge responding in the same way and vice versa, then we really could be building something again, which is really exciting. A couple of things I wanted to pick out was one that, and I think this is a real positive actually, it really feels like we're not relying on Cole Palmer as much this season. He's clearly still the talisman and he's brilliant. That finish for the third goal, I watched it again just now, and I just sort of couldn't stop smiling watching it ping in. It was just such a good finish. But last season, you felt if it wasn't Palmer, it was probably no one, and you just didn't trust us to do much. Everything went through him, didn't it, in terms of creatively? Whereas this season already, you don't feel like you feel like actually, like you said, even when he came off, we probably should have had 2 or 3 more goals. The first 2 goals, one was made by Sancho, one was by Casado, and you just have that feeling that there's goals coming from everywhere now, and we're a difficult, I think, becoming a difficult kind of team to come up against. And I think we should give some credit to Enzo Maresca, to be honest. I think the jury's kind of clear, it's early days, we know that, but I think we really felt you could see the sort of football he wants to play today. That little one-touch, these little one-touch triangles that were opening up the counters, and we just countered again and again, didn't we? It was really fun to watch that sort of football and how fast we break, which I think some Chelsea fans were worried about, because we had that feeling it might be like Sarri ball 2.0, very slow possession stuff. That's the warnings that we've been given by some Leicester fans and the media. I don't think I've really seen that. Maybe in a couple of the home games it's been a bit more like that. Home might be the more difficult thing for us, but as you look at the start of the season, so breaking down teams who sit back, but on the counter away from home we look brilliant, and it's really fun to watch. And that subs bench, it was great when to be able to bring off Jackson and putting Kinku on, and he was really unlucky actually with the header, wasn't it? It was a great save. Probably should have buried it, but instead a good save. To bring on Felix for Palmer, I thought that was really probably Felix's best cameo since his return to the club. He looked really lively, a bit unlucky not to get a couple of goals. Pedro Neto, I thought, as you said, was very lively. He looked great, and it's just like, wow, the options you've got there is quite frightening, isn't it? And it's exactly the positions that you'd want those options in, where you want the players really hungry, desperate to be getting goals and assists, knowing that if they don't, they could be out of the team in the next game, which is exactly the right area of the pitch for that to be happening. And you'd imagine, we'll talk about it later, but it'll be all change for the Barrow game, of course. But yeah, it's all the injuries we had last season where you felt like there was nothing really on the bench. It's great to have those sort of players coming on, and as I said, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, really feeling positive, like you, Joe. That was brilliant. And yeah, it's nice to have, do you know what? It's really nice. I'll finish on one thing. It's nice to be able to want to look at the league table again, because I've not had that feeling for a long time. But actually, I'm like, let's have a look at the old Premier League table, and hopefully the results go away this weekend and it'll be looking good.
What was a particularly horrendous weather day for myself, I now get the pleasure of talking about my beloved Chelsea and finally step out of the rain, which has been absolutely hooning it down for the last 8 or 9 hours. Yes, another away win. We're racking these up now. We had wins against Brighton and Nottingham Forest at the end of last season, and Wolves, Bournemouth and West Ham now. It's becoming a bit of a habit. If we can just sort the home form out a little bit, we'll be okay. But it's simply just nice to talk about how well Chelsea are actually doing. And I picked out a player in Levi Colwill a week or so ago, and I think it's only right to speak about his partner at the weekend. I was going to say young guy. He's a young old guy in this Chelsea team. And they call him Grandpa, even though he's about 26 years of age, which kind of shows you the level we're operating at. Yeah, I mentioned him in the voice note after the game against West Ham, and I think he really deserved a bit of a pat on the back, actually. He's certainly somebody that he hasn't surprised me, because I liked him at Fulham and I liked his performances there. I think when I spoke to a few Fulham fans, they felt as though maybe he was a little bit rash at times. There was a mistake in him, all the sort of things that people say about the players that leave. But I think, without getting carried away, I'm fully aware he hasn't played many Premier League games for Chelsea, but he is a Premier League proven player, full stop. He's had plenty of games for Fulham. He came through the ranks at Man City, and he's a guy that won't be worried by games like against Man City or West Ham or Aston Villa. He's used to playing against them, so he hasn't come from the French league or the German league and he's all worried about playing against Haaland and stuff. He won't be fazed by any of that. And I think what was nice was that Chelsea looked really secure. Now, I saw an article, and I won't say where it's from, but I saw an article which said the good, the bad and the ugly And the ugly, in their article terms, was Levi Colwill and Tosin from the weekend. And I just couldn't fathom it. I couldn't get my head round it. This is the first time I've watched Chelsea in a very long time, and I'm going back years here, where I thought the two centre-backs together as a partnership looked solid. And people were still trying to call them out, criticise them. And I really do feel as though this is the world we're currently living in. Levi Colwill and Tosin at the weekend were as solid a partnership as I've seen in blue, or in cream, as it was at the weekend, as I've seen for a long time, like I said. I find it baffling that Chelsea people, or so-called Chelsea people, are willing to come on and say that Enzo was completely dreadful and has no place in the team, and Tosin and Levi Colwill were ugly and basically poor at the weekend, and we were lucky to win the game. And I'm really struggling to get my head around that. I think it's idiocy. I think it's absolutely rubbish. I think this is people that never played football before. I genuinely cannot make head nor tail of that article. I thought as a partnership they were brilliant. When one went, one covered. When there was a block to be made, the block was made. He's so fast. Any recovery run he needed to do, he was back before West Ham had a chance to get their shot away. And if they did get their shot away, he was there with the block. And then not only that, he's very good at passing the ball out from the back. They were picking up on things like his long passes out from the back, not quite making their target or whatever. But you've got to remember, when you're playing away from home, players like Jackson and things who were dropping deeper and deeper to try and help the back four and the midfield out, he's always going to be marked by about 2 or 3 centre-backs or 2 or 3 West Ham defenders. So that pass up to him isn't as easy as it looks. When you're trying to hit a solitary target with 3 people around you, that's almost an impossible thing to do. I found that completely insane. Tosin's not in the team to be a marauding midfield player plucking out 60-yard passes from the back. If he can get a couple of those a season, we'll be over the moon. I think consistency and togetherness is what you need as a partnership. I had a guy I played with when I was younger, and he wasn't the best player I've ever played with in my life, but as a partnership we were absolutely outstanding. I loved the way that he was quicker than me, I was taller than him, I was better in the air, and he was probably better on the ball. And so I knew that any high ball that came in, or any ball that drifted into my area, or even drifted into his area, he didn't even go near it. It was me, I would win that ball. If I felt as though there was a player on the pitch that was a lot faster than me, and back in the day when I played, it was a lot of 4-4-2s, it was always 2 strikers. This guy would always be the guy that was picking up the quicker player. And you noticed that when Chelsea played with Terry and Gallas and things, it would always be Gallas that pick up the quicker player. Building that relationship between the two of them is going to be fantastic. We're not perfect, we're not the finished article, but we're trying to get there. And I think the likes of Tosin coming in and the things that he says about every player that's on the field is fantastic, and every player that's coming on is basically like a like-for-like replacement. So whether that be in the forward line or in full back or whatever, whether you believe it or not, the players are starting to believe that. And that's what everybody needs to understand. It's not about what we think all the time. The players have to be comfortable and trust the players they're playing with. And Maresca seems to be somebody that likes players that are really trying in training and really trying on the pitch. And I think Tosin will give his right arm to be the Chelsea first team. I really want to see this develop further and further. A toast to young Tosin. So we're a couple of days removed now from that West Ham win, but I just wanted to get your opinion on what you think of the team, mate. I personally feel as though they're a very likeable bunch. It's been a long time since I've gone, oh yeah, I like him. I don't mind it when he comes on, and when he plays, he gives me a bit of a buzz, or he's going to change the game for us when he comes on, whether it be with an assist or just generally good play, maybe can nick a goal. Yeah, there's a lot of players. There's 1 or 2 that are maybe not quite up to scratch that we've mentioned before, but in terms of personality-wise, I think there's a lot of very, very enjoyable players to watch and get behind. Am I alone in that thinking, or do you agree?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, mate. And it's something that you and I have talked about for a while, isn't it? Of just wanting to see a bit of personality from the Chelsea players, whoever they are on the pitch and off the pitch. And I think it's really felt like it's been lacking in the last 2 or 3 years, but it feels like it's starting to see it grow. And I don't want to get carried away because it's a decent start to the season, but that can change, as we know, very, very quickly. But the big stat that came out after the West Ham game, which blew my mind, is that Chelsea have only lost 2 games out of 20 in the Premier League since February, which is half a season. It's an incredible run of form. And those 2 defeats were to Man City, obviously at the first game of this season, and that horrible game at Arsenal towards the end of last season. But outside of that, I think it shows they are growing together, showing a bit of grit, and as I said, showing a bit of personality. And I wanted to pick out a few because I think it's interesting the different groups of players and personalities that we're seeing now. You've got Levi Colwill, who you talked about really well last week, and I absolutely love what you said. I feel like he really is growing as a leader before our eyes, not just on the pitch, but off it as well. And there was a really good interview with him after the West Ham game on TNT Sport with Joe Cole. And he comes across really well. He's a very articulate, really clearly very intelligent kind of guy. And I just feel like he sounds like a captain. He sounds like a club captain, if that makes sense. He's just got that feeling about him. So you got Colwill in that, guys. Talk about likeable players like Cole Palmer. He's so funny, isn't he, in terms of how cool he is, how nonchalant he is. Again, on and off the pitch, his personality is so likeable because he just takes it all in his stride. And having him as your real talisman player, I think, even opposition fans, I think, you can't not like Cole Palmer, the way he plays the game. He's got a bit of Eden Hazard about him, I think, in terms of he does it for the love of the game, nothing else. Sort of talk about like Cucurella and Enzo, because I think they go in that shithousery category. We've talked about it a bit with Cucurella, but I think you see it with Enzo as well. He had a real couple of points of the West Ham game, him and the opposition players getting in each other's faces. He did it last season, didn't he, to Mason Mount, and has done it before. And again, you want that. You want to see the passion from players like that. You want to see that side of it. I think you've got Casado, who his quality is obviously really showing on the pitch, and he has that kind of quiet quality of a Kante, where you go, again, really likeable, a quiet captain figure, and it's great to see him. And then I wanted to chuck these in as my last ones, which is like Vega and Jackson, because I think they're the kind of crowd pleaser, passion merchants, aren't they? We've talked about Vega getting in the crowd, really up for it. And then Jackson, the way he celebrates his goals with a bit of personality. And again, you love to see it. So, yeah, I'm completely with you on that. And I think I just really hope we continue to see it, because we've seen actually the connection that they're having with the away fans. We've talked about it a lot before the season. It's really good to see. If we can start to see that at Stamford Bridge, which we're going to have to for Chelsea to be successful, then, yeah, as we said at the start of the season, I think we could see that Chelsea are a lot better than people gave us credit for. And I think a lot better than even we maybe believed ourselves that we could do. So, yeah, there's a lot to be excited about at the moment at Chelsea. And let's hope that we continue saying that.
Goalkeeper takes a chance, he takes a gamble, and it is a hat-trick for Christopher Nkunku.
Recording this the morning after the Barrow game, and it was decent, wasn't it, really? I mean, it's Barrow, it's home, it's the League Cup, but I was thinking back to that AFC Wimbledon game last year where we nearly made a right mess of it and got over the line 2-1 and just very unconvincing. I had to bring up, I think Enzo Fernandez had to come on to bail us out, really. But it was good, really decent, some nice goals in there. But you compare it to the AFC Wimbledon game a year ago, and we obviously would have rotated a lot then, but the players that you're bringing in, the level down was pretty significant, really. Whereas now you see that lineup coming through, and it's, wow, the front four alone are just all big names and players that you're actually excited to see. And Nkunku obviously was brilliant. Felix, I thought was great too. But yeah, very, very encouraging. And yeah, I mean, the League Cup, it's not the priority. It's obviously the fourth most important this year, isn't it? Because you'd have to put the Conference League ahead of it. But as we often say, and we've said before, we do need to win a trophy with these guys soon. They're young players. They need that first trophy. And the League Cup, to be fair, is as good a chance you have as any. Obviously, we were very close last year. You imagine they would want to get that monkey off their back. God knows we need to win at Wembley again. Get a good draw. It's definitely a competition worth taking relatively seriously, if nothing else, just for the fact that you've got so many players who want minutes and can give games to. So let's hope for a decent draw in the next round. And in terms of individual performances, Joe, I'd love to hear from you on this one. Anyone that particularly stood out for you? Who do you think impressed you and maybe who didn't on the night?
I actually thought Jorgensen was good. And not to say that Barrow had loads of chances, but I thought Jorgensen was great. He dealt with some crosses from corners really well. He came and punched and caught a few from long throws and that type of thing. And on one occasion, or at least on two occasions actually, he plucked from the air and he sent some wonderful long throws out to the forwards and got us going up the field on the counter-attack really quickly. So I still think Jorgensen's going to be an excellent goalkeeper. I think he's one to watch. And I think if Sanchez ever does have a slight dip, I think Jorgensen will come in. As for the match, I thought it was very professional. I thought Chelsea did a very good job. They could have obviously gone and got loads more if they'd wanted to. Bit sloppy in the middle of the midfield. I didn't think Cassidy had a particularly good game. I'd be worried if he was going to come in for anyone soon. I would have much preferred to have seen Chook in there, but obviously he's just more of a favourite player of mine. But yeah, I didn't think the midfield was great. I have to say the players I do want to call out, what I thought was Dewsbury Hall, Cassidy. I didn't think Mudryk was great. I thought his ball for Neto was wonderful. That was good. Good play there. Great decision. But again, I thought him and the two central midfield players were bang average, really. Against a team like Barrow, they should be really dominating and exerting their skills and their talent, and I didn't think they did that yesterday. That's my only negative on their front. I know you don't want to get injured playing against these teams, but equally you're trying to get into the first team. In my mind, there should be a lot more quality, and I didn't think Dewsbury Hall and Cassidy particularly were up to it, which is a bit of a shame because Dewsbury Hall so far for me has been a little bit underwhelming. I thought Nkunku was great. He took his goals very well. I thought Felix played well. Again, his lovely assist for his first goal, and I thought the free kick that he scored that was given as an own goal, I think it's a little bit silly. To me, I think that was going anyway, but I'll have to have another look. But that was a great finish. And I thought overall the team just clicked, really. It was a good squad. It was nice to see Chilwell come and get a game towards the end. And overall, I was just very happy with the way we played, the way we dealt with them, because it's easy to get caught up in, like we did last year in some ways, played AFC Wimbledon and barely scraped over the 2-1 win late on. So it was good to get the game done and dusted. Everybody could relax early on and move on to the next round. Yeah, nothing much more to say about Barrow. Fair play to them. They brought a load of fans down and they had a good go. They didn't give up. They kept going at us. And on another day, they might have even pinched a goal. But yeah, I thought Chelsea were very professional. They did the right things. They've come away with no injuries, no problems. And that's all you want from a cup game against the lower league team. Make sure you come away with an injury-free squad. Yeah, very happy. Boys did well. And we go on to Brighton.
Hey, it's Chris here with a really quick message. Check us out on Instagram at 1905 Podcast. You'll find video clips, photos, and much more about everything we discuss on the show. Plus, it's a great way to get in touch to tell us your thoughts, share your feedback, or just say hi. Follow us on Instagram at 1905 Podcast. And now, back to the show.
It's that big derby this weekend. The battle in the boardroom derby. Who's going to come out on top, Chelsea or Brighton? For me, Chelsea have turned a little bit of a corner at the moment, and Brighton's form, they started well. The season was decent. They got a result against Man United when, let's be fair, they should have been 2-1 down, only for a disastrous touch from the goal line from Zerkey stopped Man United winning that game. And they had a good win against Everton on the opening day, which, to be fair, Everton look like an absolute car crash of a team right now, so I'm not really holding too much praise on those games. They got the wins nonetheless. Since then, they've had a draw at Arsenal, which is no mean feat, 1-1, and they've drawn with Ipswich and Nottingham Forest at home. So they're not exactly flying. I think there's a sense from the media and other outlets that teams like Brighton are just so wonderful, and their football's amazing, and everyone should be following what they're doing. Quite frankly, I don't think they're as good as everyone says they are. Having said that, they're no mugs, and they can cause you problems. I just feel as though Chelsea at this point in time have definitely found some rhythm, found some form, and you can see that the ideas that Maresca's starting to implement now are actually coming off. And I think the more the players play together, and that is why you're seeing Palmer and Jackson play together a lot, by the way, because they clearly have an understanding, is that he wants his methods and his ideologies to be used each and every week in game. And the stronger the bond between the players, the more likely these things are going to come off. So yeah, I'm fully backing Chelsea to win this game at the weekend. Maybe is it blind optimism? I don't know, but personally, I just can't see, if Chelsea plays to their full potential, and if we can get this more or less the same team out that we played against West Ham last week, I think the more that Brighton come onto us, the more we'll pick them apart. So that's my personal feelings. With regards to Brighton, I think they say they're a good team. I think they've got some very good players. Matoma's one we've got to keep an eye on. I think João Pedro, if he's fit, is a very dangerous player. And Danny Welbeck has had a bit of a renaissance, hasn't he, at Brighton? He seems to be a player now that is scoring a few goals for them. So again, you can't give him a chance inside the 18-yard box because he's pretty deadly, actually. And to be fair to Welbeck, he was always pretty decent at Man United. He's just always been a bit unlucky with injury. But yeah, so they're probably their three main big hitters. They have other players in the team that can always cause you problems, like anybody can. But I think this game between Chelsea and Brighton, there's never a lot of love lost, is there, between the two? It was very feisty towards the end of the game last season in the away game when Reece James was sent off for being reckless and stupid once again. So yeah, I think they've got a point to prove. We've won the last 3 games against them, home and away, and they'll want to put a stop to that. So I think this is a game that Chelsea have got to get right because their home form has been bang average. I think that's probably been kind. They were okay against Man City. It was a tough game. We always thought that was going to be a potential loss. And against Palace, even though they should have won the game, and Maresca said we should have won the game, and on chances created we should, but we didn't actually play that well. And in the second half, we weren't incredible. We had moments and chances to score, but I wouldn't have said our overall play was 100% perfect. So I think he's gagging for a home win. I think it's all very well winning against Servette and against Barrow in the League Cup, but I think you really need a good Premier League victory at home to get the crowd on side and get his name sung, and that'll be good to get Maresca's name sung in the crowd as well, because I think that always sends out a message to the players and the board as well that they're backing their guy, as in Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, Ancelotti, etc., etc. So I think that's quite important. But yeah, my overriding feeling towards the game is that we just cannot be sloppy. I think defensively we've looked much better, and against West Ham we certainly looked a lot more sure of ourselves. And obviously the Barrow game, I can't really use that as a barometer of anything because obviously the differential in the teams is just so far apart. But if we can get another performance like we did against West Ham at the back, that is going to hold us in good stead to score plenty of goals going the other way. So yeah, my gut feeling for the game is that we're going to be strong. I think the Chelsea players will be also desperate, not just Maresca, they'll be desperate to get a win at home and get us off and running in the league with 3 points. Yeah, fingers crossed. Again, always optimistic, you know me, and let's hope for a very good victory.
Let's hear the view from the opposition ahead of the Brighton game. We have big Brighton fan Maz Mazade, who you might know from Lad Bible, some people. And we asked Maz to start with, how does he feel about the Chelsea and Brighton rivalry that's obviously been stoked up in the last couple of years? What's the feeling on that from the Brighton side? How are they looking going into the game? And then his take on the game. Would he take a draw on Saturday? So over to you, Maz.
So I think there is a lot of animosity towards Chelsea, mainly because of all the departures that have been. If you look at the backroom staff, I think you even took our dinner ladies. Yeah, it started from Win Stanley at the higher levels, then to Sam Jewell, head of recruitment, and of course Graham Potter and all the backroom staff that went with him. And I think the timing of that departure was really frustrating as a Brighton fan. We were doing pretty well at the time. And then of course Graham Potter decided to leave to go to Chelsea. And then finally, Bruno Saltor as well, who was part of that backroom staff. He was a bit of a cult hero. So him leaving was really hurtful because we thought, he'd stay loyal to the club. But look, we get it. Chelsea are a big club at the time. Champions League football, big proposition. And of course, the money that comes with that as well, the amount of money that Chelsea was spending and are spending now, of course, is going to be huge for anyone wanting to move on and develop their career. So we do get it on one hand, but also it's frustrating on the other hand because you want to develop and get better as a club, but then if everyone's leaving, it doesn't help. And then you look at on the pitch, we lost Caicedo, Cucurella, Bobby Sanchez ended up going there, which maybe might have been a bit of a blessing. So yeah, there was a lot of departures, and the way they were drawn out sometimes, the Caicedo saga drew out for way too long, and he ended up posting some things on social media. So it was a very frustrating time, and I think a lot of the fans did not like the way that certain things were handled, and some of the players and some of the staff that was involved. But like I said earlier, I do understand the Chelsea proposition. So it is frustrating, and I think that has bubbled away now for a couple of years. And I suppose if you can't beat them, buy all their players and staff. But no, all joking aside, it is I would consider Chelsea a rival in terms of us not liking them, not on a playing level. I think, in terms of your resources and your playing staff and, your structure and the size of the club is bigger than Brighton for sure. So we're never going to, compete on your level at right now, but in the future, potentially, who knows, if we keep going the way we're going. But yeah, it is frustrating, and seeing some of your best players get poached all the time, especially from the big clubs. And yeah, Chelsea have been one of those needles in our side. And so it's always nice when we play you if we get a result. It's always good to get a win. And I think we do definitely look forward to that game as fans, try and get one over you, just to make up for all the transfers and all the people you've taken from us. I think we've made a really good start to the Premier League season. 5 games unbeaten, one of 4 teams to be unbeaten still. Arsenal, Man City, Nottingham Forest and us. So that's a really good stat to have. And 2 wins, 3 draws is really positive, considering we played Arsenal, Man United in that time too. Getting a good win against Man United last minute, João Pedro, and then a good draw away to Arsenal as well. I know there were 10 men, but it's always a tough place to go. So to get a point at Arsenal was big for us. And going into this one, Chelsea, I am a bit worried because I was at Chelsea versus West Ham on Saturday, and I thought the front 4 looked really threatening, and I think they can cause us a lot of trouble, especially with our defensive agility. So that is one area I am worried about. I think if the front 4 can really get clicking of Chelsea, that they can cause us some problems. But I think we have also got some really good attacking options. The likes of João Pedro, Danny Welbeck on fire at the moment. You've got Matoma on one wing. You've also got a Dinger and Minter on the other. It's really some exciting attacking players that can really hurt Chelsea. So it will be a great game, I think, for the neutrals. If they're watching, it'll be a fantastic game. 2 attacking teams. Again, I think both sides defensively have got question marks over them. I think that's, I'm sure there's going to be goals in this game. And a big concern for me is João Pedro got a knock on international duty, came back against Nottingham Forest, and then got that big tackle from Morgan Gibbs-White and looked like he was hobbling for the rest of the game. So potentially he could be a doubt for Saturday. I hope he's fit and I hope he's okay. But that is our only real injury concern. We've got a few players coming back as well. Evan Ferguson slowly coming back from injury as well. Estepinian at left back. So it's a good time. I feel like most of our players are fit and ready to go. So it should be a great game. And I'm hoping that we can cause Chelsea some problems, and we'll see how we get on. So when I take a draw, I think away at Stamford Bridge, I think you have to take a draw for sure. We should go into that game full of confidence. Like I said, one of only 4 teams to be unbeaten in the league right now. So there's any reason why we can't get a win away to Chelsea. Is your form a bit of smoke and mirrors? You've played a lot of the bottom 8, so it could be a bit of a smoke screen. I know it was a great result against West Ham, but they were awful. They were terrible. You just walk through them. Caicedo was brilliant. He had a fantastic game. And of course, Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson were brilliant up top as well. Yeah, I think that it's going to be up to the attacks really to determine the game and how that goes. And it'll be interesting to see how the defences match up. I think that's going to be the key areas. Whoever is defensively great, I know it sounds very Michael Owen-esque, but whoever can, be defensively solid, I think that foundation will be key. And obviously that midfield battle as well. I think Caicedo against Baleba is going to be brilliant. A good battle of 2 brilliant players. Baleba's very raw still, and Caicedo, he was brilliant at Brighton, and I think he's really impressive at Chelsea as well. So it'll be really interesting to see how those key areas match up and which teams, or like I said, will be able to sort it out defensively. And yeah, to answer your question, in short, I will take the draw if given.
Well, a big thank you to Maz for his preview of the game. And I think to start with, I have to say, I do have quite a lot of sympathy for Brighton, and actually a lot of Premier League clubs where the big clubs now are coming in and taking their best players and managers. If I hark back to, I guess it's always existed to a certain point in football, that's just been part of it, but if I hark back to my my era growing up in the 90s, where Chelsea were really on this path building an exciting team with cosmopolitan players like Zola and Di Matteo and all those kind of guys. It just didn't really happen as much then. Of course, you'd have occasional kind of, big clubs nicking a player, but it just wasn't as frequent now. And you just wouldn't, you feel like now, if Chelsea were sort of finished, I think, 6th in Zola's first season, you guarantee now that summer it would have been like Man United and Arsenal and a bidding war for him, trying to nick him off us and that kind of stuff. And back then it just wasn't even a consideration, I don't think. He wouldn't have gone. He's a Chelsea legend. But I feel like that actually, it's quite sad how often that does happen now, that the second a player is doing really well, we've done it to many a Premier League club, but before us, Liverpool doing it to Southampton and all that kind of stuff. It's the nature of the game, isn't it, now? And it's really used to exist. Yeah, I sympathise with that, but obviously we very much hope that we don't sympathise on the pitch and Chelsea take all 3 points on Saturday. I think I'm feeling, I think you don't, when you're on good form, 3 clean sheets in a row, you're feeling fairly boyish going into the game. It's, something we've talked about before. We've got to make Stamford Bridge a fortress again. It was something we really did start to do under Pochettino in the second half of last season. It felt like actually going to the Bridge, you felt confident about what you were going to see on the pitch. And I think that is so important, not just for the team and obviously getting up the league table, but I think for the fans as well, something we keep talking about at the moment. But I think it does bear talking about that we have to get that connection and get Stamford Bridge rocking again, because when it does, it's a special place and it all makes such a big difference. Even Maresca himself talked about that, didn't he, after the West Ham game, talking about how brilliant the fans had been and how we need to start to see that at home games. So, yeah, really looking forward to it. I think in terms of the team, I imagine we'll see probably pretty much what we had against West Ham, won't we? Maybe with the one exception being that Gusto comes in at right back, which will be interesting. I think it's going to have a big decision, a centre-half, in terms of who plays alongside Colwill. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Tosin. Wouldn't be surprised. I feel like I say it's a big game every week. I mean, it's every game in the Premier League is a big game, isn't it? But it would be really brilliant if we could keep this momentum going and stay in and around that top 4. We finish, as always, with our best and worst memories of that fixture. And this week, it's over to Joe. So, Joe, your best and worst at home to Brighton.
Yes, I was actually dreading the head-to-heads this week because there haven't been too many brilliant games versus Brighton at home for Chelsea. But the 2 I will pick out are really recent games because I think they were memories that I would like. One I want to forget and one that was actually quite positive. So the first one obviously being the defeat, which was our worst game, which was back in 2023 when Frank Lampard came in for his second stint as manager. And I think at the time I think most of us thought as fans that we would see a bit of an upturn in performances and he would at least get us playing some good football and maybe we'd score some goals. And actually it was the complete opposite. We played terrible football. We didn't score any goals and the performances were just so bad. Home and away, didn't matter where we went, it was awful. In this particular game, Moises Caicedo and Robert Sanchez started, which was interesting, looking back at the old games. And strangely, Conor Gallagher actually put us 1-0 up in this game, which was a complete shock because we literally couldn't score any goals at this moment in time. But it was quickly levelled by Danny Welbeck just before half-time. And then that fabulous goal from Enciso, I'm not sure how you say it, that rocket that he put in the top corner, which no goalkeeper would say, to be honest with you, made it 2-1 to Brighton. But if anybody doesn't remember this, we were mauled by Brighton. They were all over us. They could have scored. Oh, if it had been 8-1, we couldn't have had any complaints. It was that bad. And I remember driving around listening to this game and thinking to myself, what is going on? I had the love had gone. My enthusiasm had gone at this stage. The performances were so bad. And you get in that mood in your head, you're just thinking, I just can't see when we're going to win another game. My kids are saying, why are Chelsea so bad, Dad? You're going, we never used to be. So, yeah, it was a really hard time to be a fan, to be honest with you. And you just couldn't quite see when those next goals and 3 points were going to start showing up on the board again. But, yes, that was a pretty poor day. And that leads me on to my favourite game against Brighton at home, which, again, very recent game, which was last year. We were unsure, weren't we? It was one good week, one bad week, it felt a little bit, and we never really got a lot of consistency going until the very end. But it was around December time, Christmas time, I want to say the start of the Christmas period, where we had Brighton at home and they were playing some good stuff, and we'd got beaten the year before, and the memories are coming back. I'm not sure we're going to get over the line. They were playing some good football. But actually we played pretty well in this game, and Enzo started scoring off, and Levi Colwill scoring a second goal, and he refused. He went to celebrate and then forgot he played from the year before and decided that he wouldn't celebrate. But yeah, he put us 2-0 up, I think with a sort of bit of a header that it did cross the line, but he didn't hit the net. And you're thinking, okay, this is all right, this is going very well. And then they got a goal back just before half time. You're thinking, oh, okay, not great, but at least we're taking a lead in to the break. No damage done, and then Conor Gallagher gets himself sent off on the 45th minute for 2 yellow cards. So now you're up against it at home. Brighton are the sort of team, they run ragged, they're always all over you, they press like mad, and you're just thinking to yourself, okay, this is going to be a really long second half. And then we got a penalty, and to be fair to Enzo, he stepped up and he scored his second goal of the game. And what we would all give for Enzo to score 2 goals this weekend, because boy, he could do with the boots, couldn't he? So yeah, with 3-1 up, and you're thinking, okay, this is pretty pleasant. And we managed to get through right until sort of the very end before João Pedro scored with about 2 or 3 minutes to go in normal time, which made the last few minutes of injury time just absolute hell, because Brighton did throw their kitchen sink at us, but we did manage to hold out. But the game as a whole was very good, and Chelsea did play some good stuff on the day, and it wasn't like the year before where we've been completely smashed. It was a 2-1 loss that could have been any score to Brighton. We were so poor. So the general kind of feel of the game was like, okay, in the space of 12 months, we've really closed the gap, as silly as it sounds, on Brighton and the teams above us a little bit, because we were way off it the year before. It couldn't have got much worse, in all honesty. But yeah, I think that would be my favourite game. There've been a lot of draws with Brighton. We've never lost or drew with them for ages. And then we drew 3 in a row, and then we lost 2 in a row, and we've won the last 3. Let's try and keep that run going with another win at the weekend.
Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.